Hello, everyone, and welcome to the semi-finals here at SCG Cincinnati. Brought to you by Anurag Das, who does such hard work to make all this possible. I'm Dom Harvey. I am here with Andrew Ellenbogen, and we have an absolute barnstormer of a feature match here as we get down this home stretch. We are a team tournament, of course, and we have Team Jerry Thompson against Team Corey Bowmaster, two of the most distinguished teams, headlined by two incredibly distinguished players. And we're going to be watching a mirror match in the legacy seat between Jerry Thompson on Blue Black Death Shadow against Noah Walker on Blue Black Death Shadow. And Noah in particular, anyone who knows Legacy knows Noah Walker. He is, I think, and has been and may still be the best player of these blue tempo decks in Legacy in the world. Gonna see if he still has his chops. He was not able to make it here for round one of the tournament, so his team was flying solo in round one, but made up for lost time there. The Bash brothers and Noah are here in our top four, and this is going to be an absolute treat of a match. I'm very excited to watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. Just two incredible matches of the game. Noah Walker, an incredibly accomplished player, certainly in Legacy, but even beyond that, former Gold Pro, many-time Pro Tour competitor, a bunch of Grand Prix top eights, you name it, against Jerry Thompson, Pro Tour top eight competitor, former Platinum Pro, yeah, etc. Both of these players' reputations precede them, and we're in for some great magic here. Delver mirrors, or in this case, Demir Shadow mirrors, are incredibly intricate, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, this could have been an SCG Tour feature match from the mid 2010s, and they're a little older, a little more grizzled now, but great to see both of them back at it. And these Blue Black Shadow lists, conceptually very similar, but there are some interesting differences of opinion between the two. So Noah Walker with a more classic take on Shadow, Street Wraith, Snuff Out, two reanimates here, going with the usual package of blue cards and Thoughtseize and cantrips and so on. And then Jerry Thompson, well, Jerry went deep in the tank for this one. So we have the full 4 reanimate and this heavier reanimate or almost scam sub package almost with 3 grief and 2 Troll of Khazad-dûm. So
Wow.
this is the black land cycler from Lord of the Rings, which that can fetch you your Watery Grave, that can fetch you grief, but also sometimes you just cycle that on turn 1 and now you reanimate this 6/5 on turn 2, and conveniently you just dealt yourself 6 damage, so your Death Shadow is now castable and massive as well. So really cool take on Jerry's side. And these two did play in the Swiss. In terms of the team, Corey's team took it down on turn 5 of extra turns for the real close photo finish. And in this match, Jerry, and I quote, dismantled Noah, who says that Jerry, and I quote again, got very lucky. So we will see if history can repeat itself right here.
Yeah, so I don't know. This is going to be fascinating. So, in general, I think that these Delver mirrors involve just kind of a ton of resource trading back and forth. Lands get wasted, lands get dazed, cantrips get countered, everything trades with everything. And I don't know, kind of the games often grind out as a result. Is that sort of your experience as well?
Essentially, yeah. These are the two archetypal small game decks, basically, where you trade off resources. Whoever has the best thing after that is going to pull ahead. So these decks, they're good at creating those small games, good at winning those small games. So when they play the mirror, where you get the smallest game imaginable, basically. So we could see this game go to turn 7, turn 8, and both players could have 3 permanents to play on each side. So it's that kind of matchup. You can settle in for a long run. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah, so it looks like at the beginning of the game, we're going to start off pretty tamely. Both players casting Ponders, neither getting dazed or anything, both just kind of resolving. And we'll see how things develop. It's I'm not sure what it implies that both players let on Ponder. Certainly, I think leading Delver over Ponder is often preferred, but both players don't have very many copies of that card, so totally understandable outcome. And Noah following up with a second Ponder. All right. And he's
Yeah.
also wasting Jerry's land, it appears.
This is this is classic Legacy, almost said vintage Legacy there for a second. And it's also what has made Legacy sometimes a little hard to follow if you're just watching on stream or in person, where so much of the game is happening off the board. It's in the player's hands, they're casting cantrips, they're looking at the top of their deck thinking, what should I put there? Should I shuffle? What should go back? So there's a lot of stuff that you kind of have to infer from the semi-hidden, semi-public information. Both these players are adept at that, and I guess we gotta sharpen our too if we want to.
And Jerry's just going to waste back, which sort of puts Noah to the test, right? If Noah doesn't have additional land, if his hand is mostly interaction or some such, then he's going to kind of lose on the spot. But he does have the Watery Grave, and we continue. Interesting. So Jerry commits a basic island here. Do you think that means he doesn't have another land, or he does, but he's intentionally not committing it?
It really could go either way. This could also mean he has the troll set up and is maybe working towards basic island plus basic swamp for a fully wasteland proof mana base. It's still a little awkward there in the sense of, well, your island only makes blue, so not helping to cast all of your single black spells. Your swamp is not casting Murktide Region. So there is a definite cost of doing that, but you get that wasteland insurance in return.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Noah has Bowmasters plus days and a couple of brainstorms here. And so I think he's considering whether he wants to Bowmasters while Jerry's tapped out, with the idea that if Jerry has free counter magic, such as Daze or Force, he'll then just Daze back and his Bowmasters will stick. But it's also possible he just isn't in a rush, or would rather pick a fight on Jerry's turn. Not totally sure how he wants to play this. Mm.
Worth noting as well that the interaction between the two decks, Noah's has 3 Snuff Out, which against a deck where the premier threats are mostly black, is more conditional than you'd like it to be. It does hit Murktide Region, so that's a lineup worth noting. But Jerry only has 2 of those, and then has Shadow, Bowmasters, Grief, Troll of Khazad-dû. We can't snuff out any of those. Whereas Jerry, on the flip side, only 1 snuff out, has a Fatal Push to Drown in the Lock, so a little more removal that can actually deal with the creatures you're going to see on either side there.
Yeah, agreed. And if Jerry gets this troll into play, which I understand is far from guaranteed, but it seems like it's going to be an absolutely massive problem for Noah's deck. He doesn't have any way to remove it. It looks like, right? Unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I guess lining up a triple block or whatever is not going to work out so well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess in theory he could like utilize Bowmasters to try to generate 3 blockers and maybe get some pings. It's not literally impossible, but it seems just incredibly difficult. And so no potentially breathing a sigh of relief to see that troll exiled, to be honest.
Yeah, although it's getting exiled to cast a gigantic Murktide Region, so not sure how happy we're going to be. We'll see if Noah can find one of his 3 Snuff Outs and win the fight over that to stop that Murktide from dominating the game here.
Mhm. Well, I don't think Noah has one, but with all these brainstorms, it's possible he can just dig for one. If he's able to clean up this Murktide, he's in a fine spot. Also, wait, he just opted not to daze it. Is that correct?
Well, if you have the Snuff Out, then it kind of makes sense to pick this fight, especially if you're turbocharging your Shadow in the process. So, yeah, Jerry just puts the Murktide in the graveyard right away. And now the
Right,
coast is
but
cleared for the Orcs and then for some kind of follow-up.
okay, maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought we looked at Noah's hand before the Murktide result, and I don't think he had the Snuff Out, right? Although I guess maybe he knew it was there from a ponder or what have you. Interesting.
Thoughtseize now too. Wow. And Jerry, I think, has... Hmm.
Okay, chat's saying he did have it, so maybe I just misremembered Noah's hand. My apologies.
Yeah, there's in Legacy with these blue decks, there's a lot of, well, I know what's in my hand, and then I know a few cards that are in a bunch of different zones, and any one of those could become relevant at any time. So a lot to stay on top of. And
Yeah,
Jerry thinking long and hard about this Thoughtseize. I wonder if there's, if this considering just dazing this to maybe tax Noah's mana and boost a Shadow or something, or is this an actual fight with something like Forcible?
I would be really surprised to see a Thoughtseize get forced. It just kind of turning their Thoughtseize into him is rarely where you want to be, but it's possible Jerry has some play that's so powerful it's worth protecting. It's hard for me to imagine what that looks like. Maybe a troll plus reanimate rolled up. I don't know.
The shadow might qualify as that. Honestly, it's hard for Noah to remove. It's going to be pretty big before too long here. But I think one reason Joey doesn't want to pick this fight now is you try pitch casting force and you walk into Noah's days or something. That's pretty backbreaking. So I think Jerry is happy to just kind of trade off for now. Understand he'll find something good that he can present again soon, and pick that fight when he's more comfortable with it.
All right. So Jeremy's hand at this point, though, it doesn't really do anything. Right?
No. And it's tough to justify, casting the ponder in search of something better with the Orcish Bowmaster on the other side. So there
Yeah,
is
for as strong as Bowmasters is in Modern, and it's maybe the best card in the format, I imagine it's even stronger in the format where everybody plays a bajillion cantrips in every deck.
oh yeah, it is a format defining card in Legacy already, and one reason why the Shadow deck is able to have this big resurgence where like now your tempo deck actively wants to be in black in a way that maybe it didn't in the past.
And Noah, I think, wisely here, holding up a mana so that he can fight with free counter magic on Jerry's turn and fight through Jerry's known days, which I presume is his idea.
So grief being cast pitching control, that's been its main function this game so far.
Yeah, but if Jerry has found a reanimate, then this is terrifying for Noah. So
Yes.
he has to consider the possibility of that and react accordingly.
And Jerry has the full 4 reanimates in his deck, so more likely than it might seem.
Yeah, reanimate in your opponent's hand is more likely than you think.
Oh, did Noah miss a Bowmaster trigger? Noah,
I think
buddy.
he might have. That is very unfortunate for him, if so.
All I'm saying is Noah in 2018 would have had that one on lock right away, let me tell you. But in any case, we are where we are now. So Grief is being cast, seeing a hand of double Brainstorm Days and a second Bowmaster there for Noah. So strong cards, but Jerry has, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Jerry has his own Bowmaster now. You want to have the second one. Jerry has the second one, but then Noah has the third. So this back and forth is going to be a little strange.
Well, yeah. So how should Jerry play this out? Is I think pretty interesting. For example, he could imagine taking this Days, which would let him Bowmasters this turn, but he also might be able to wait and play around the Days. It's unclear if he has to concede that his value when he already has 3 lands. But it does look like that's 3 settings. Interesting. So that's just to me that he's going to just slam his Bowmaster and maybe hope to counter Noah's Bowmaster on the way back, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense now. So this Brainstorm could turn up the goods. If Noah finds another Days again, that would be phenomenal. Looks like Noah has Double Force, Dress Down, Brainstorm, and then the Bowmaster. So gonna have to put 2 back. So right now, can present Force plus blue card. Can choose which of those blue cards it's going to be. Second Force makes a lot of sense, I think.
But he knows about the Days in Jerry's hand, right? So if he does force here, which I think is reasonable and maybe what he's going to do, but he knows it won't resolve, or he has to suspect it won't resolve at least.
He does, but he also knows he's not drawing a land, and so if Jerry gets to hold the Days, well, now the follow-up Bowmaster just gets Days instead. So I think these exchanges are kind of forced here. He's almost hoping for this, right? Knowing he has the last Bowmasters on deck, Jerry's Bowmaster resolves, kills Noah's. Noah gets to untap, and then if he resolves his own, well, now he's back in the driver's seat again.
Yeah, that's very fair. And whichever player ends up having Bowmaster supremacy here just gets to cantrip freely their heart's content, whereas the opponent has to pay a price for at least most of their cantrips. Maybe not all, depending on mistriggers.
Yeah, and you see Noah playing the Bowmaster and then moving very fast as soon as Jerry goes for his. Like that was the turn. If Jerry, had the interaction there, then that's a game deciding turn. As it is, Noah now in command. Although Jerry picks up Fatal Push, so can tag the Bowmaster, and then we just have like these meager orc armies staring at each other across the board.
Yeah, both players going to be kind of out of gas here, honestly. Jerry's hand being just a lone force of will doesn't do too much. No one not having much left in the tank either. And we might devolve into a point where top decking is the name of the game.
Yeah, and that happens more often than not in these mirrors. I said a while back, right? You can expect us to get to turn 7, turn 8, and both players have 3 cards in play. Sure enough, that's where we are. Stocked graveyards, pretty meager boards. And the thing about the blue decks post the expressive iteration ban is you don't have that way to go up on cards in the mid game. So you're just making these one-for-one trades. And so, yeah, both players are going to run out of cards real quick.
Yeah. No one having this brainstorm left over, though, I have to imagine is good. He can kind of leave whatever garbage he doesn't want in his hand, put his best card or two on top, and be in at least a decent spot going forward. Certainly not decisive, though. If Jerry draws better, he could easily win from this point.
And reanimate would be a phenomenal draw, right? Like that gives you the Bowmaster supremacy that the whole game is centered around at this stage.
Yeah, I think that. So I don't know how many mirrors Jerry was expecting. I'm not sure exactly why he did or did not choose to play these four reanimates. But if one were expecting a lot of these Grixis, or sorry, blue black shadow mirrors, then I imagine that playing a bunch of reanimates is a good strategy. Just between animating Troll being unbeatable, getting Bowmaster supremacy, getting griefs, always having good targets from their graveyards. Just the whole package seems pretty appealing to me.
Yeah, Reanimate has been a staple of these shadow decks for a while. So when it broke out in the hands of Josh Layton at the Team Pro Tour, Reanimate was in that deck and one of the nice finds there. But also in a format where one of the best combo decks is literal Reanimator with their own Reanimates, it's a great card there. And you're seeing in these blue mirrors just the Bowmaster fights. You reanimate your shadow or their shadow. It's just such a flexible and cheap card that it's one of the main draws two back for me alongside Bowmasters and some of the other packages there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I also know that there was a bunch of buzz around Reanimator in kind of the wake of the ban and the new legacy format. I'm not sure how much the results this weekend have kind of supported that hype, but certainly a deck that was on many people's minds going into this tournament.
Yeah, it's a combination of it's relatively affordable for a legacy deck, quite easy to play in the sense of you have a ton of free wins, and just fundamentally a very powerful deck that if your opponent doesn't have the hate and have it at the right time, then you just plow through whatever they have going on. But you also see some more accomplished players picking up Reanimator too. You know, Roger Suleiman at the NRG recently just not his usual speed, right? You expect him to be showing up with tundras and brainstorms and so on, but no, just showing up with Reanimator and cruising to an easy top 8 there.
All right, but we do see that first game going to Noah. Despite missing that trigger, he ends up cleaning it up with that Bowmaster Supremacy.
And it looks like as we take a peek at the bracket here, Team Weinberg already victorious over Team Wu. So Team Weinberg quickly advancing to the finals and waiting for one of these two formidable teams to become their opponents.
All right, and it sounds like we are going to be bringing you some modern action from this match. So that is Breach versus Creativity. Uh, Honestly, a fascinating matchup to watch, and we have two real masters to put on this show. What's interesting about this matchup is that in game one, Breach doesn't have access to very much counter magic. So in game one, Breach's plan against Creativity is mostly that it happens, but they can use the ring to kind of forestall Archon triggers, buy time, and ideally reach a point where as soon as Creativity goes to their combo, Breach just untaps and kills them with the Breach combo.
And in the worst case, you unholy heat the Archon maybe, and the game continues anyway. So you see a big turn there from Corey. This is turn 3, it looks like, and he was able to cast the One Ring, so already ahead of schedule, and pay for Spell Pierce between Ragavan connecting twice and Mox Amber. 6 mana on turn 3, just forcing through one of the best cards in Modern. I'm not going to say the best because Orcish Bowmasters might have something to say about that from the new set, but you see why the One Ring is making waves in general and why Corey is so high on it on this deck. It doesn't take a lot to get him to play this grinding breach deck, but the One Ring. I know he and Jesse Robkin, Jess Guy Robkin, put it both ways. Both a big fan of that card in the shell.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll say here is that okay, prior to the printing of the One Ring, I generally thought that Breach versus Creativity was a close matchup, like a coin flip, anyone's game. Hard to say. I have to imagine that the Ring has bought Jeskai Breach percentage in this matchup. Hard to say exactly how much, but I would guess that with the Ring, Breach is favored against Creativity.
Yeah, I will certainly trust your judgment there more than my own. You see there with Emery as well. Like one thing that Emery suffered from in the deck previously was it could be a little anemic sometimes. Like, okay, you buy back a bauble every turn, that's fine. You buy back the One Ring, that is a serious threat that you can just present turn after turn. And against decks that can't interact with Emery, you can even lock people out by just looping the One Ring to get that protection shield turn after turn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this I don't think is that likely to come up in this particular matchup, just because, well, the creativity deck does have a variety of ways to answer the enemy. But then
Oh,
again, you never know. It's possible that a few turns of looping buys Corey those critical time he needs. And if Dave sticks an Archon, it's really nice that Corey just isn't cold for that reason.
and Corey now going to play Shields' own Teferi, it looks like.
You would think so. And now that, okay, it's not necessarily backbreaking for Shields. Teferi doesn't do anything incredibly strong in this matchup in the sense that, well, there's not Archon in play to bounce or anything like that. But does give Corey a free mana, nothing to be sneezed at, and lock out any spell pierce or reprieves that might be waiting in Dave Shields' hand.
Yeah, that's one of the nice lines with Teferi in this breach deck, which it's in white, mainly for its own Teferis, where you can bounce your Mox Amber and replay it to make the Teferi cost 2 mana effectively and double spell more easily.
Is this a ring? We're re-ringing here, as it were?
There's this 4 mana being tapped, and there it is. Yeah, so Corey played Shields' own Teferi and was able to use like the mana cheat with that and Amber to play the ring on the same turn. So that's a nice one. I don't think Shields can really match that card for card.
I mean, Corey is incredibly far ahead in this game. He's drawn a ton of extra cards. He's got Ragavan going, Emery going. He's got the Fairy in play. He'll stop counterspells. And yeah, Shields is done. I gotta say, I agree with his concession. Um,
Yes. How does this matchup change in sideboarding in your view? So if you're on the draw with the breach deck, your Ragavan now is it more in danger of cards like Ren? Is that a potential card? Are there other things which you're looking to add in, take out, and move around?
well, mostly I just think having the counter magic and being much less cold to creativity means that post board, I think things often end up in kind of a grindy card fight. Rather than being as much about the combos, since both decks will gain a bunch of tools to handle the other's combo, is typically how it goes. But yeah, I don't think that you know creativity has any incredible haymakers necessarily, just kind of more targeted interaction. So I think I still like the breach side, even if they get access to like force of vigor or I don't know tear asunder in this case, maybe some change the equations, nothing groundbreaking.
Do you like the Elish Norn in this matchup?
Oh, do I like the Elish Norn? Well, it's interesting. Elish Norn generally is highly effective against the breach deck. It stops the combo. It stops a lot of the cards they have access to. It lives through Unholy Heat, so it's pretty hard to remove. But it's a little awkward to board in because you won't have control over whether you see it or an Archon here. And so, like, the fact that you can't ever make an Archon for one if you do find that, like, critical turn, or, like, for example, if you want to try to make an Archon for one with counter backup, and then you hit Elshore instead, in some spots, I can imagine that being pretty unfortunate. But I think I would board it in. I'm not very confident, though. I suspect Shields would know better than I would. But anyway, it looks like we're going to get back to the legacy action here.
And you certainly love to see that. So Noah finding through a beautiful hand of brainstorms, reanimate. There's like him to Chorak there in the middle. Him has got a new lease on life recently, not just because your blue decks have a reason to be heavily in black again, but also without that way to actually go up on cards in the mid game. There's stuff like Sauron's Ransom, which I'm not sure if that's going to come in here, but him is one of the few ways to actually get a clean 2-for-1, which is kind of hard to come by.
Yeah, agreed. And I also like that it's a way to get a clean 2-for-1 that doesn't proc opposing Bowmasters. To be clear, neither is Sauron's Ransom, but for example, something like Knight's Whisper or anything of that nature would be pretty bad in the face of Bowmasters, whereas him, no problem. All right, it looks like Jerry has mulled to 6 and is considering tucking a Bowmasters here, is what I think is going on.
Yeah, does he have the troll reanimate 1-2 punch lined up here?
I see a Grief and a Reanimate. I don't
Okay,
think there's a Troll, but I'm not 100% sure.
well that works as well. And the nice thing about reanimate as this upgrade to the feign deaths and so on that you see in modern, obviously a much more flexible card overall, but it also means that if the opponent has the force of will or something and hits your grief, well, your reanimate still works, can bring it back, keep shredding their hand even further there.
And Noah is thinking about this one, but wait, is he doesn't have a does he have a force? Or is this a pure bluff? Hmm.
Well, it's either a tank or some nice Hollywooding from Noah here. It looks like, well, we're gonna find out one way or the other before too long.
Well, like forcing grief is pretty dangerous, since if you force grief, then they still get to reanimate. Okay, maybe he was thinking about cycling the street way. That makes sense. He was like, do I
Sure.
well, because like, if he cycles it, then Jerry will like know what it is. And so the question is, does having that info benefit Jerry more than the fact that it's a land you can't take it in some sense?
Yeah, if you think Jerry is never taking the Street Wraith, which seems close to true here, I think. Maybe not. Maybe that's too bold a statement. But in that case, then yeah, you just don't give Jerry the extra information. There's also the case of, do you try and brainstorm in response to the grief, which is a common line against discard, but I think Noah doesn't care too much about any one of these cards specifically, and also does not want to get the brainstorm days because at that point, the other brainstorm gets taken maybe and the whole house of cards kind of falls apart.
Yeah, agreed. But okay, so we're going to grief twice. No, then it will have again the option: does he want to cycle straight in response to the second grief? But looks like no. And both brainstorms hit the bin. All right. Noah definitely doesn't love to see that, but it's not the end of the world. Jerry obviously mulled a 6, so the players are sort of even on cards. Oh, and Noah finds Wasteland, and Choose just fired off, maybe hoping to cheese Jerry out and therefore overcome his card disadvantage.
I guess so. I don't think the cheesing really happens all that often because both players are so good at operating with so few resources. Jerry even has the troll sub package, right? So can get some additional mana based insurance that way. But I
Well,
think
that's
no,
really
it's
true, but like
yeah. Go ahead.
imagine that Jerry kept a hand that was like one land, grief scam, ponder, troll, or something like that, right? And no other lands,
Right.
right? Well, he would clearly grief scam on one, and then if he got Wasteland, he might lose. Like he might just be unable to ever cast a spell again.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at what happened on that turn, Jerry mulled 6 first of all, and then kind of used 3 cards to take 2 cards, and so Noah is up on cards already, happy to just make that 1-for-1 exchange, and then also you have the upside you mentioned of if Jerry doesn't have a second land, well maybe you buy a ton of time that way.
Well, the reason I phrase it in terms of he's trying to scam him is that okay. Well, 1-for-1ing is sort of okay from a card's perspective. From the perspective of I'm getting beat down by this 3/2 threat that I need to answer, and if both players have less mana, it will be harder for me to do that. Was sort of losing out on the exchange, right? Like it's a bit complex the dynamics here.
Yeah, and the grief is weirdly hard to deal with too because Bowmaster is pretty good at it. To be fair, making the 2 bodies and then can shoot it if you get an additional trigger, then it works out that way too. But any of the big singular threats like Shadow or Motide or whatever doesn't actually deal with grief, and so if you can't block grief, and also Noah doesn't really have the removal to kill grief, then the grief just there for a while, which is a terrifying thought as the game goes on.
Yeah, and definitely kind of feeling the lack of lightning bolt here, right? Like because both these players are playing straight blue black and all the other removal choices snuff out, which then probably gets boarded out at least in some number. uh, these black creatures are just very, very hard to remove.
Yeah, looking at Noah's list now, again, the fatal pushes in the sideboard. I imagine those come in and would do the job. Beyond that, though, there really isn't a ton. So I think Bowmasters, as so often, is the clutch card there.
But putting kind of more pressure on what's already one of your best cards is, I think, kind of a dangerous prospect, right? Like, you don't want to be in a spot where the card you're already hoping to draw as just a fair magic card is also one of your few answers to this. Obviously, if that's where you end up, it's where you end up. But I'm just kind of pointing out that's sort of contentious, since I don't know, Jerry's already incentivized to fight over and kill Bowmasters.
Exactly. And one way to stop yourself dying to grief is just make a faster clock. So here is an attempt at a 6/6 Motide Regent. Jerry has the days, and I assume Noah will fight over this if he can. So yeah, Motide down, grief still uncontested, only creature in play, gonna clock in for another 3 here, and that's a 3-cent clock.
Yeah, I can't imagine Noah wouldn't daze or force, if he has any forces still in that play. But oh wow, and it's another reanimate coming through.
So wait, let's see. Jerry.
What's happening now? Is there a little dispute or
So
something?
I think what may have happened is Jerry was at 9 and would have to shock down to 7, at which point reanimating the Motide would kill him. So we're not going to do that. So we're just gonna show him what's up. Not actually cast that card, and also the Street Wraith was delved away for the Motide. Yeah, so no other targets left back there. So that
Oh,
makes sense.
maybe he thought that the street wraith was still in the graveyard, not realizing it was
Yeah,
away, something like that. Yeah, totally makes sense.
we cracked the case. Good work, team. So
But
now
Noah's
Jerry's
still
on
just dying.
Jerry's on nothing. Noah is dying, but if he finds a Bowmaster, he now is not dying and has a bunch of cards left over. So those seem to be the stakes right now. If a Fatal Push would do it too.
Yeah, but a lot of his deck isn't great here. For example, I think there was a reanimate in that ponder, and although reanimate could make a creature, he's just hit 4 and it would be dead. Uh, so he doesn't have that many outs. Like, what, we're looking at a couple of fatal push, the 4 bowmasters. That is maybe it.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be this turn necessarily. Okay, so Wasteland going to take out Underground Sea. That's interesting in that if Noah draws push, does he have another source for revolt? Oh, yes, he does. So he could, if he drew push, he could actually push, daze his own push, picking up a dual land to give himself the revolt and then pay for the day. So that would be an adorable way to kind of get to the same conclusion. But doesn't
Yes.
have it. So we will see a game 3 here in the Shadow Mirror between Noah Walker and Jerry Thompson. And there are very few people that I think you would bet against in a blue mirror against Jerry in his prime. Noah might actually be one of those people, though. So a real treat to get to watch that. But we are going to cut into game 2 of Modern here. Corey Bowmaster on his signature Jeskai Beach deck up against Dave Shields on also his signature deck in Creativity. He's been a pretty big advocate for that deck, but the Breach deck it's not as mainstream, but it has a very devoted following, and Corey is out ahead of that pack.
All right. So it looks like we've got a turn 2 Ragavan here for Corey. Um, and it's not clear what that means. For example, possibly he just found off the Mishra's Bauble and it's returned for that reason. But it's not that, which means he's holding up something. Maybe a Spell Pierce? Any thoughts on the implication of this playdown?
I I would imagine there's some kind of spell pierce in the mix there. Um, I don't know what that means for shield side. If you fear spell pierce, do you have to just jam anyway? Do you let Ragavan hit you? Because then that's kind of terrifying too. Does have the bulk. That's a cleaner answer.
All right, sorry, we're being told maybe the match is over. We're trying to figure it out. One moment here. Okay.
All right, so monkey down, and we'll see what Corey has as a follow up here.
So I think that what it means that Corey kind of helped us spell pierce there is okay. The main turn three play out of shields that you'd want to counter would be either Fable or Teferi, right? So one thing it might mean is that if Corey has like multiple counter spells in his hand, he might want to make sure that Teferi doesn't resolve, so it doesn't blank his like other counter spell in some sense, right? Uh, because otherwise, Teferi resolving isn't that scary. So maybe you dash and like hope to get the treasure if they don't have it. Um, but possibly also he's just saying, well, look, Fable's one of your best cards. I don't want you digging for whatever it is you want. And therefore, I'm just going to leave it up. You'll probably kill the Rogv anyway. Going for this dash upside just isn't worth the risk.
And here is Grinding Station from Corey with that telltale blue mana open still, yet again. Grinding Station often maligned as the worst card in the Jeskai Breach deck. How do you feel about that diagnosis?
It's pretty accurate, but the card has gotten something of a new lease on life with its ability to repeatedly sack the ring and therefore pull off the Emery loops with only a single copy of the signature artifact. Um, but regardless, from Shield's perspective, it means that Corey is dangerously close to a combo kill, and he probably can't tap out anytime soon.
Yeah, but if Shields tries to play a more reactive game, then you're going to see the strength of Urza Saga come into play, I think, where it's going to churn out two threats, find another good thing on the back end there, whether it's a drum, a bauble, Haywire might maybe as leyline binding insurance. So Corey gets to play a better reactive game, and if Dave tries to be proactive, then Corey likely has a good punish for that as well. But Shadow Prophecy is a nice way to kick things off here on Corey's end step.
Yeah, good way for Dave Shields to keep the shields up constantly, or the shields, if you will. Um, but but still manage to make progress, dig through his deck, get some card advantage. But Corey's gonna spell pierce it. Right, okay. The spell pierce he's been representing the whole time, he in fact has. What a shocker. Um,
Now, does Corey using that there tell you anything about the rest of his hand? Like, if you didn't have a second pierce, second form of interaction, would you be willing to fight over the prophecy?
um, that's hard to say. I might. Like,
Look at look at this though. Shield's piercing back, which Corey can pay for, but now has to think long and hard about. Okay, what exactly does this mean? Like, what is Dave trying to wheel me into here?
interesting. So I mean, if I'm Corey here, I think the first question is, okay, well, do I have breach? Because if I have breach, then maybe I don't even care if she has creativities because I'm just going to untap and like kill him, which Corey is extremely close to doing. Um, but
Ye-
if I don't have if I don't have breach, then maybe I need to fight over this and try to stop him from like finding whatever it is he needs to find. And since you can pay and still have whatever your other counterspell up is, that's pretty reasonable.
Okay, so this it might just be you're going to pay two, and you can't make a contract with Urza Saga. Like, you're kind of trading the pierce for a construct, which is interesting because Corey, all of Corey's interaction, or most of it, costs one mana. Pierces, unholy heats, so on and so forth. And so taking Corey down to one mana.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so chat, let us know if you can hear us right now. We will. We think we have the stream back. We'll welcome bringing you the magic back once we have a second here. it turns out that a judge may have accidentally unplugged a power cable or something. So the man trying to keep us down, but we're still here, still spitting fire, giving the hot takes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They really are just trying to suppress the message, the truth coming from the Honorog string here. But we're going to do our best to bring you that truth in the form of some high quality magic.
For example, like this magic right here, which we're coming back in the middle of what looks to be Corey's combo turn.
Yeah, so this is lethal, presuming Dave Shields doesn't have anything. What Corey is going to do is, for those unfamiliar, is just go through his deck, sacking Mishra's Bauble, bringing it back with the escape mechanic, exiling 3 cards, and then milling 3 more cards to the grinding station. He's just going to iterate that process kind of ad nauseum until his entire deck is milled. As he does so, he has 1 extra card off that Scalding Tarn, I believe, which means that he can leave Thorkel kind of in the bin, and then at some point he will cast Thorkel in an empty library and win the game. Now the thing is, he is doing this kind of on a narrow graveyard count that is exactly 3, so he doesn't have that much margin to work with, but he might be able to utilize Haywire Might as an extra sacrifice in order to flashback, for example, a Spell Pierce to fight, if Dave Shields does have some sort of interaction. So it's going to be pretty hard for Shields to get out of this. Maybe not impossible. He does have 5 mana, so maybe he could, for example, play a Leyline Binding and pay for a Spell Pierce, something like that. Since I don't think Corey has the cards graveyard to play Spell Pierce greater than 1 time, unless does that sound right to you, Tom?
Yeah, so we're using Emery here to potentially net a card in the graveyard that way, which would also let him, if he mills Mox Amber over, he can go up on mana just using that as the artifact that comes back every time and then tapping it before sacrificing it. So he needs 3 cards per loot, and there's the Mox Amber for that. And then it looks like he is exactly 1 short of being able to, re-pierce again in that case.
Yeah, so I think he's just basically comboing with single Spell Pierce backup, but I also can't really imagine what Dave Shields could be slow rolling at this point in the loop.
Yeah, I think if you had a way to contest the breach, you would do it earlier in the process, because otherwise, well, Corey can just buy a bunch of stuff back from the graveyard, and then even if he doesn't get to fully combo, he's pulled so far ahead that you can't come back from that. So yeah, Dave sees the writing on the wall. Corey Bowmaster wins that match convincingly 2-0. And so now it falls to either Brad Nelson or Noah Walker to get that second dub on the board for team Corey Bowmeister.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, this is one of the scary things about playing against this Jeskai Breach deck is, okay, look, they don't always have it. Their deck is not that kind of consistent, but when they do, you just die really fast some of the time, and it's kind of hard to respect that it's a creativity deck when you're also worried about everything else that's going on, when you're also worried about the Ragavan attacks, the Saga beats, your own combo. There's just kind of a lot to manage, and for that reason, we see the Breach deck emerge on top. I for one, am not surprised.
Yeah, there's the One Ring now to worry about as well, so a lot going on, and stay on top of all of it. And if you expect creativity to not be the top dog maybe that it was before, but still pretty popular, then the Breach deck may be a good way to handle that. I don't know if this is a don't try this at home kind of situation, because you have Corey and Jesse and others consistently doing well. Is it something which you would recommend to a wider audience, or is it a case of, as you often see in Modern, well, yeah, they're a master with that deck, but just let them do their thing, don't try it yourself?
Yeah, I'm not so sure whether or not I'm a Breach believer at the moment. I have some mixed feelings. I mean, certainly I think that the strength of the deck is high. Oh, all right.
Okay, so we will Anurag has to rejig some stuff for the stream. Parts of the setup are being moved and so on. So got to reset up all of that. So that'll take a few minutes. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with you hopefully before too long. Don't go anywhere.